Live.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us here. See some comments coming in already, and we are going to tonight start a deep dive into the new book that's out and it's available, Walking Backward. And I think most of you are aware of that. If you're not, you can go on to authorhouse.com and either type in, just you click on the bookstore tab and type in either John C. Glenn or the title Walking Backward, and they'll have one to you. So, and that's what it looks like when you click on. I know there's a little shine on there. I'm trying to eliminate that if I can. I'm not having any luck with that, but anyhow, that's what you're looking for there. And so, anyways, kind of the consensus of the group tonight was that we would not go right to the first chapter, but start at the very beginning with the introduction. And Dave made the comment, and I agree that, normally I highlight things with a yellow highlighter as I'm going through trying to hit the high points. And Dave said that he would have to highlight the whole introduction, and I agree with that. So we're going to just dive into the introduction. I guess I'll just get us started, but I only want to speak briefly because I think all of you have some things that God has shown you with this. But what I did is I was making some notes going through the introduction, and it really actually starts with the cover of the book itself, and that it says Walking Backward, and then the subtitle is A Lifestyle of Grace and Truth in a World Full of Law and Lies. So right from the beginning, we're seeing a very stark contrast. So as I read through the introduction, I was contrasting, and in my notes, and I know it's going to be glare, but I can't really see. But on one side, I put a column of grace and truth, and on the other side, I put a column of law and lies, and in the middle, I just put the abbreviation for verses. So right from the outset, John's making some comparison between a lifestyle of law and lies and a lifestyle of grace and truth. And as I went through it, I was just on one side putting the law and the lies, and the other side putting grace and truth. And for example, he talks about things being backwards, and he talks about what Jesus said in Luke chapter 9, where those who seek to save their life will lose it. You have to lose your life to save it. To live, you must die. To be first, you have to be willing to be the last. And he goes on with these same sort of contrasts in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew's, chapter 5 and 6, where he says, things like, which just seems so backwards to us, if someone takes you to court and sues you for your coat, give them also your clothes, give them the rest, give them everything. If someone strikes you, turn the other cheek. All these things that are just so foreign to the modern, or not the modern, just the natural mindset. It's not modern at all. Wrong word. Natural mindset of what's right and what's wrong. And John talked about, from the outset, so many churches are so focused on teaching Christians what's right and what's wrong, and what you should do and what you should not do. And that is really not what the message of the gospel is at all. So we're so focused on the knowledge of good and evil, and what really came out to me was that word knowledge, because even in secular humanism, those who deny God, they want to promote knowledge. If we could just get the knowledge that we need, we could fix all these problems, fix all the world's problems, all based on knowledge. And it's all based on not just knowledge, but our own power, our power to actually, And John points out right from the very outset, all the knowledge in the world is not going to save you without power. And where does the power come from? Not from us, but from God. But from the very beginning, we learn that if we just take control and really pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, that we can be successful in being in control of our lives, and we can make ourselves secure, we can make ourselves significant. And it's a total lie. It's a total lie. But we gravitate towards that. So that's kind of the overarching thing that I'm seeing here. And I'm going to shut up now and let somebody else jump in.
I wouldn't mind saying before we get too far along, if people who are watching this want to get in on the comments, they need to sign in on their YouTube account to be able to ask questions. And a few of us will be watching the comments on the sidebar. So if you want to jump in, and if you have any questions while we're going along, that'd be a good place to place them. I'm thinking Bill, and it seems like Tom is already keeping his eye on it. So as we go along, that's the best place to join. We have a bunch of us from our church looking to join in. And then on Thursday night, we're going to do a follow-up meeting here in Fort Pierce. So if you're in Fort Pierce, you're welcome to join us there too.
Great. Good deal.
What I saw going through the introduction, I don't know how many times you guys have been through the Alpha series, but for me, it took till about the 5th time before it even began to make sense. And I tell people, if you've gone through it once, there's no way you got it all. And
yeah,
what I see is John has kind of refined everything down to a fine point and clarified a whole lot. So it's really refreshing because I can actually hear his voice while I'm reading it. It's kind of like listening to him all over again. And but yeah, it's like you said, we get so caught up in thinking we have it all figured out, and we're supposed to read the scripture and figure out what we're supposed to do. And so many times that I've had struggles with that and talked to John, his only response is, "What's God telling you?" And really, it's about the leadership of the Spirit that it seems so simple, but it's very difficult.
Dave, what do you mean by leadership of the Spirit?
Well, being able to be in contact and have these. Well, one of the ways John presented it in a few of his teachings was that the Spirit will speak to you, or God will speak in persistent thoughts. And I found that to be true right from almost the first day that I was had my awakening or got saved. And I would argue with it. I would argue with this thought, hey, go feed that hungry guy. And but persistent thoughts that line up with the written word is part of it as well. They need to be consistent with what God is already doing. And then circumstances will arise and show you the clarity of walking into it. And then our responsibility is to follow in faith what we heard God say and what we see him leading us to do. And if we get it wrong, I was, the great analogy, God says, go to Mozambique, and I ended up in Mexico. And God's not going to beat you up for making a mistake. He's just going to lead you to the next place. We're going to make errors, but that's all part of the walk as well, I think.
And I think that part of this, a big part of this, is understanding that this is not something that is set up for the upper echelon, that it's just for pastors and teachers, and this is for the custodian at the school. This walk is for the person who serves lunch to you down at whatever cafe you go to every day for lunch. It's for everyday person. And the reason I know that is one of the things that's hit me lately, and in reading this, I kept thinking about it. Who did Jesus pick? Well, one of the guys was a big fancy guy. He was a tax collector. And another one was a physician. But the bulk of them were people like fishermen. And so that makes this for all of us, this lifestyle. And it's not a law, it's not a rule, it's not, and the reason it's not is because it's personal. See, laws and rules are not personal. I can't think of the right word for it, but they're static. The law is the law is the law. You know, Florida state law. If you pick
external.
Yeah, if you picked one of them, that's Florida state law. Until they change it, it is what it is. And it's true for all of us. But this being true for all of us is different in the way that how the Spirit moves us. And I keep seeing that line. I keep looking down at it because I have it highlighted because it hit me. What's in it for me? Well, I used to say that with the old legal system. And okay, well, if I do this or I do that, then the pastor's going to like me. If the pastor likes me, Jesus probably likes me. And if Jesus likes me, God likes me. Because what Jesus likes, his daddy likes. And of course, remember, I'm saying his daddy likes. Even though I'm a believer, I'm not believing that basic truth. And we're back at being a babe in Christ, but I'd been saved 30 years already. And I still didn't understand this, that it's for everyday life, that the truth is always the truth. And so when I walked into the first page, at the very bottom of the first page of the introduction, you see the words, what's in it for me? And then that's followed up with, and try as hard as we can to save our lives in every respect. And that just got really old really quick. And so then that's when it starts to get awkward. So don't let that shock you when it does. The reality is when God starts speaking to you and you realize that it's God speaking to you. I can remember time and again pulling up to a stop sign not far from my home here, and this voice, this in my head, this voice would say, turn left. And I'd turn left and go on to work. And I swear to you, nothing happened. Now, why I wasn't supposed to go straight like I normally did, straight to 441, turn left, go to work, pull in, but no, I was supposed to go the other way. I have no idea who I was supposed to see, who I was supposed to wave at. Maybe that's all it was. I don't know. But it just got to where I just automatically did it because I came to believe that, okay, God, I don't understand, but I'll do it. And so then when I was reading through this intro, all these years later, I'm born again 50 years. And or 50 plus, but still, I recognize that hearing his voice and recognizing that he has something for me, that he cares enough about this old retired man that he will take time to speak to me and tell me what he wants me to do. And the very last section here says a new lifestyle. Well, before that new lifestyle is a restful walk. And if you think about those words, a restful walk, that's you're walking. It's a movement. That doesn't sound restful because you're going to get tired, but it's a restful walk. It's a peaceful walk. You begin to walk this life out every day because you begin to understand that the grace and the love that he has for me, justice was delved out onto his son so that I could have that restful, peaceful walk and thus have a new lifestyle away from the law, under grace, recognizing that I know I don't I don't really need the law in that I don't want to do that stuff anyhow. As God has shown me in my life, my testimony is my testimony. The stuff that I lived through is what I lived through. So I know what it means to me. And that's what is true for every believer. They can come to know what this life or this new lifestyle of understanding that God cared enough about every little detail of our lives that it wasn't just, okay, I sent my son to the cross, you're saved, now you're on your own. I'm interested in your everyday life. And that's when he says that, put on my yoke because it's easy. Well, when you think about that, that's a big old heavy piece of gear that they put on those animals. And that doesn't sound easy, but he says it's easy. And the reason it's easy is he guides us through it. He puts somebody with us. He gives us the Holy Spirit. He comes into our head. We get his mind. That first set of words, what's in it for me? That's what's in it for me. Peace and rest. And I'll tell you, Sunday morning, I got a text from Martin. He asked me one thing. How you doing, Bill? And I said, the word that comes to mind is scared, S-C-A-R-E-D. And I have no idea where that came from. There it was. But I'm glad he asked the question because I'm now searching for answers. And God is speaking to me, telling me, your upcoming heart surgery, I've got you. And I've got Gail. And I want you to not worry. And what does he want me to do? In the new lifestyle, he wants me to rest. Even in my circumstances. So get ready, folks, because that's all just from the intro. Next.
I'll go.
Oh, I was going to say, don't tell me my speaker was off.
I got stuck on the first paragraph. When it's talking about the walk, describing the way we live our everyday lives as followers of Christ. Our walk, in the figurative and metaphorical sense, includes not only our verbal, non-verbal behavior, but also our emotional condition, relational qualities, social competencies, and spiritual abilities. Throughout its many uses in the New Testament, the term walk provides a description of our everyday lifestyle as believers in this world. And I don't know about you lot, but before I came to Christ, I was a retard in all of those. I was emotionally retarded, relationally retarded. I had no social competencies. I didn't have any spiritual abilities, and instead of them, I had rules and regulations, which is what he's talking about in the beginning of this introduction. And of course, it's more eloquent than I can put it. And then he goes into how backwards it is to our natural thinking, the thinking that we've relied upon to meet our needs. Even though we didn't know that we had these needs, we thought it was just a way of life. And I don't know about you lot, but finding out in my early 20s that what I called love was actually manipulation. It was totally foreign. You might as well have been. What do you mean? Excuse me, I can't tell you how many bunches of flowers I bought, or, you know, how much money I spent on saying I'm sorry, trying to express love. And then on the bottom of page 6, he says, finally, walking backwards is awkward because it demands that we give up our natural tendencies to control and manipulate people and circumstances in life. All of us are born with the self-centered desire to control our world. Cute little babies instinctively seek control their physical and relational world to meet their own needs. The fact that they are incapable of meeting their needs does not keep them from trying. Anybody relate to that? But simply frustrates them all the more. It's where you get critical and judgmental as they grow up, and they do not quit trying to control and manipulate, but rather learn to be more sophisticated in their efforts. Another word for sophisticated is religious. You know, you join a group, join a church, and instead of it being spirit-led, it's preacher-led, and you spend your whole time kissing the preacher's arse, learning nothing, just bringing the street into the church house, and you're not getting fed spiritually.
Yep.
As we grow up, they do not quit trying to control and manipulate, but rather learn to be more sophisticated in their efforts. Instead of crying, they learn to whine and beg. As adults, they get even more skilled in their efforts to control and manipulate, but the goal is still the same. They want to meet their own needs. Well, this walking backwards is supernatural. I think in the last few weeks, the term, you got more chance of laying an egg. When we were talking about faith, well, it's the same with this walking backwards. It's absolutely foreign to anything that we've ever learned. You know, waiting on his provision is another sentence that's used in here. Trusting him. All of everything that John has said in this introduction will bring up your conditioning and highlight how we've been trying to meet our own needs and not, I think we were talking about it last week, we don't even know we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even know that we're manipulating the person in front of us or the group in front of us, or because that's part of your life, part of your conditioning. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but that's why you feel empty, or you don't feel heard, or you don't feel as though you're a part of it, because you're in control. I mean, there's a ton more, but that's getting to this rest and taking this yoke upon ourselves is exhausting every avenue. And even when we, like Michelle said, it comes back to step 2, coming to believe that I can't do it and he can, and that he wants to. And it's easier said than done. Like we said, I think it was last week, you've been relying on your own self-effort your whole life. And Bill said, this is personal. This is between you and God. This isn't something that you can showboat with. It's not something that you would want to showboat with. This is about you desiring our whole life. How do we get that? Let go. Because even in those first few comments, in the walking, verbal and non-verbal behavior. Think about how you've controlled people your whole life by not even saying anything. But we learn how to play the game. We learn how to get that acceptance by being quiet. Emotional condition. Nobody knows how you're doing on the inside. You can give it all the praise God and hallelujahs that you like to make it look like, you're doing wonderful, brother, and you're dying on the inside because you don't know what to do with these emotions that are rearing their ugly head and the negative self-talk that comes along with them. Social competencies. There's cliques everywhere. If you're not in it, it's rejection. We've all got rejection buttons on the top of our head. They're always getting pushed. What are you going to believe? Spiritual abilities. Do you know that you know that you know that you're loved by God? Or are you faking it? Rhetorical question. But this is an introduction to putting all the games aside, even the ones that we're not aware of yet, because the flesh is sneaky, the flesh is deceptive. And are you willing to take a look at it? Because that's where this is going. This is going to be so good. Walking backwards will set you free, and you'll be walking backwards in a crowd of people that are walking forwards, and you'll be comfortable in your own skin, perhaps for the first time in your life, because you're hearing, because you're watching. That's freedom, man. That is absolute freedom. Anyway. Did we lose Ron? Looks like we lost Ron. Was it something I said?
I have a pretty strong feeling here that as we take this study seriously and go through it, and all of you who are watching, listening, take it seriously, that we need to strap on our spiritual seatbelts, as John used to say, because it's very possibly, I think it's inevitable that parts of this ride are going to get bumpy, okay, to each of us. And it may get bumpy to each of us in different times and different places as God deals with each of us, as Bill was talking about, personally and individually. As we go through this thing, we need to give everybody the freedom that they need to, ride it out, and the encouragement to ride it out. it's going to get, maybe, as we say in the horse world, a little Western as God, exposes some things to each of us that perhaps we didn't know were there, and it's already started with me, just with the introduction. So don't be surprised, I guess is what I'm saying. Kind of expect it. But I just want to echo one thing that you said, because it is part of that quotation that you made, Martin, from the opening here, where John wrote, "The fact that babies are incapable of meeting their needs does not keep them from trying."
Absolutely.
That, and I was comparing that. Vernon and I watch our 15-month-old granddaughter Avery on weekdays while my daughter and son-in-law are at work, and it's from a basic humanistic standpoint, it is so true. I mean, what saves her is the fact that she's so stinking cute. I mean, but she's already learned to manipulate us.
That's what they say about me, Tom.
Yeah. but she's already learned to manipulate us, and she'll get more sophisticated, as John pointed out, as she matures. And that trying to seize control by any type of manipulation or behavior that they can come up with, it's just so ingrained in it, and it's so backward to surrendering control to God. It's just so backward. So don't be surprised when God exposes that in all of us. And he's going to do it in different places and different times. I just know it.
Right.
And it might be a little frustrating, and it might be a little bumpy, but it's what's good for us.
And the beauty of this introduction is what he's also saying is, just because you can recognize it or you've got the knowledge, it doesn't mean you can do a damn thing about it.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
No way.
Right?
Yeah. That's the other side of it. It's a power issue.
You could have a doctorate in whatever you want, but it doesn't mean that you've got the power, like you said in the beginning, to change anything.
No.
It's not in our job description. It's his.
No.
That's foreign. That's backwards.
No, that's so ingrained in us and in other people. So not only we're dealing with ourselves, we're dealing with other people who are going to get frustrated with us.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like,
right.
All this is going on, and you're not freaking out. Why are you not freaking out? You should be freaking out. You should be doing something about this, Tom.
Right.
Why are you not doing something about this, Tom? So it's not just you; it's everybody around you.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I throw that in at no extra charge.
Yeah. That's a good point. Good point.
Yeah, John mentioned that there are probably millions of books written by people going through the scripture and looking at each verse and clarifying, well, this is what it means you're supposed to do. And what most books do is try to strengthen our knowledge of right and wrong, our knowledge of what to do, and encourage us to try real hard to do it. But I know toward the end of John's ministry and his living here on earth, I don't know how many times I heard him say it: stop trying real hard to be a good Christian.
Absolutely.
Get it done.
Yeah.
It's the trusting that gets it done. It's the listening that gets it done. It's the giving up my will for his, the giving up my control for his. And even then, it's impossible. We're never going to do it all day, every day. But boy, when we do, we don't have to freak out as much, like Tom said. We don't have to panic. We can be concerned without freaking out. Because in the back of our mind, we know that God's somehow going to handle it. And if we don't know that, even the fellow I brought up several months ago, Sven Erlandson, basically says, no matter what happens in this world, are you assured within yourself that you'll be all right? And that's what God handles. No matter what happens, somehow I'm going to be all right through it all.
Yeah.
And that's what I
And
was
then
saying.
because he's made you who you are, you can hear him talking to you. You know, or they'll because when you are walking in grace and truth versus law and lies, you're no longer a lone ranger. You're part of the body, and you can have conversations, and you start finding out you're not the only one that's going through this. You know, that's one of the biggest lies. When, like, good point, Tom, bringing that up, because this is one of those books that will wreck you, because it's Holy Spirit led. You know, it's you want to read this book? Okay, let's read it. Well, now I'm going to show you how to live it. You know, which is two completely different things. You know, you could know this book inside and out and not experience it. Just like the Alpha series, you might be able to teach it, but to live it could be something that hasn't even been approached yet. I went through the Alpha series 4 or 5 times, and then I ended up in rehab because I couldn't believe it for myself. I couldn't believe it for myself, and the reason I couldn't believe it for myself was the baggage, was the conditioning, was the lies, the false beliefs, like he's saying in this first paragraph. My walk was all about me, and I needed a spiritual awakening to see that it wasn't about me. It was about others. So anyway.
Yeah, and I would just interject there too. What really made the Alpha series come alive to me was when I studied it in conjunction with walking out the 12 steps. Because you're either going to do those steps or you're not.
Right.
Simple as that. And some of those steps are just, well, most of those steps are just, they'll scare the hell out of you.
Brutally honest.
Yeah. And that, you know, so that's when you're really starting to walk in faith. And then all of a sudden, boom, the Alpha series starts coming alive to you. And you start, you know, connecting the dots. And, you know, and also, you know, you say you can't go through the Alpha series just one time. You need to go through it several times. Well, you know, you need to go through the steps as well.
Every day. It's an everyday occurrence.
Daily.
So, you know, that's the 12 steps are going to give you that prescription. Are you going to go act on it? You're going to go get that prescription filled or not, you know, and then take the medicine, because it's a bumpy ride. And I think this is going to be a bumpy ride as well for all of us. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
No.
I think it's exactly what we need. And that's why to pursue it and really pursue it diligently, I think it's really going to be a healthy exercise. And I don't know how long it's going to take, to be honest with you. You know, it took me 14 months to just go through the Alpha series 30 minutes at a time, once a week at the Cowboy Church thing at 9 o'clock on Sunday. And I still just scratching the surface. So but that's cool.
I got involved in a leadership conference, and I had been through the Alpha series several times, teaching it probably at least 20 times, 30 times. I did it in the St. Lucie County Jail. I did it in Market Correctional. And this guy was teaching something similar. He came from California, had some similar charts and similar understandings. And every time he asked a question, my hand was stuck in the air. And he finally said, "Have you been through this before?" And I said, "No, but I teach something like it." But he hit me with some truths that I needed to hear. He says, "Why don't you sit back and let other people learn?" instead of trying to prove how smart you are. And I'm like, wow. I was teaching a whole lot of other people, but I was not actually applying my own life. And that's what we really need, is to apply the gospel in our own life, not preach it, teach it, and teach everybody else. And getting honest, like Mark said, we're part of a body here. Camille said to me last week, it's really refreshing to hear us guys get honest and saying, I'm afraid, I'm hurt, I'm scared, I don't know what to do. Because many times, because you're working in law and lies, you're afraid of the rejection or the reaction when you get honest with people about what's really going on inside. When,
Yeah.
you know, I've mentioned to you guys one of the first few weeks I was on, sometimes I just still feel like I'm a little kid. I'm 65 years old, but I feel like a 12-year-old kid trying to climb through this world. And sometimes I still feel like that. It's like, when am I going to get it, you know? But the good news is I got a dad who loves me and reminds me that I'm not all alone.
Vulnerability, I think, like Tom, you were saying, there's two lines of on the page. I think vulnerability wasn't in my vocabulary for the first 25 years, 30 years of my life. There was no such thing. But then when I saw people that were vulnerable or in context, walking backwards, and they didn't die on the spot, you know, it was like, oh shit, they can do it. Maybe I'll try it, you know. And it was something I was scared to pray in public, because at the time all the people I was around were coming out with all these elaborate prayers and using words I didn't even know existed. And I mean, I couldn't even pray over dinner because I was scared of getting it wrong, you know. But in the end, you just get to the point, and you know, you got, even though you don't know it, you got the Spirit in you that's motivating you, and you find yourself in the middle of it, and the words are coming. It's like he's saying in here. There's a huge choices to be made, and it's not being made on your own. It's with him. He's like going, come on, take my yoke. It's easy. We've got to take that one step. You know, he'll make it comfortable enough, appealing enough. You know, like Tom said, this might get uncomfortable. Well, me included, I don't like change unless it's kind of brought upon me, or that it's uncomfortable where I'm at. If this chair gets too hard, I'll get up and go and get a cushion. But until it gets to the point where I've got to get up, I'm not getting up. It's the same with all of this, you know, emotional stuff and spiritual stuff. And it's cool. It's cool. Sorry.
I can go.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I got a page and not even a half. Where I went with it, what jumped off at me was all the years that I have spent trying to meet God's expectations of what I thought God's expectations were. And he says it right here, the 10 Commandments revealed in the Old Testament, along with 1,000 plus commandments given in the New Testament, provide us with ample description of what God expects our walk to be. So I read all that, and I knew what he expected our walk to be, and I spent years and years and years trying to do it. And it said, while it may be useful to clarify these commands or explain their historical context. Increasing our knowledge and understanding of what is expected of us is no way guarantees that we will even come close to meeting those expectations. And I found that out in my own experience. Instead, I prefer to focus our attention on what is necessary to actually fulfill the law of God in our everyday life. Rather than simply clarify or reiterate the demands of the law, I am concerned with finding God's provision for us. And that's what happened to me when I exhausted all my resources. I burned out on trying to do it myself. I couldn't. And finding God's provision for us to act, feel, relate, and live like Christ in this world today. So when I read that, the Lord said, well, what does living like Christ look like? And then it's like, that's a good question, because you can't really pinpoint that to one thing. The body of Christ is each individual members, and each one's doing their part. Nobody looks the same. So anyway, so then he said, what kind of lifestyle or Christian walk should I be trying to live? But rather, how am I going to live this supernatural lifestyle demanded by the law? And when I read that, supernatural, the Lord spoke to me and he said, it's natural versus supernatural. And all those years that I spent trying to do it was in the natural, when it's a supernatural thing that takes the grace of God, the power of God to enable you to do it. No wonder I could never do it. So then on the other page at the top was talking about Jesus's public ministry. Anyway, the part that jumped off at me was a willingness on our part to understand, receive, and celebrate such backwardness is what I mean by the title Walking Backwards. A willingness on our part. So when I started recovering, when I started really getting the help I needed, was when I became willing to take everything that I ever knew. Actually, I was on my way out 710. I was living on the farm. I had graduated Faith Farm, Okeechobee. I was living in a trailer on the property, and I was working back and forth in Stewart, and I was driving back one day, and the Lord said to me, I want you to take everything you've ever learned and ever known and throw it out the window. And I want to teach you brand new. Mm-hmm. I'll never forget it. But all I've had is a willingness to change. That's all it's taken on my part. I was a willingness to listen, because if you're a know-it-all, if you know everything, how can anybody teach you anything new? You know everything already, so how can you learn anything? So he told me to throw it all out the window. I want to teach you brand new. And then so I got to an awkward walk down about the second paragraph, and it said, second, walking backwards runs contrary to our natural conditioning, in that it requires a personal exercise of faith in God's provisions rather than our own efforts. So that's where I'm still at. It's like, when you go through the Alpha series and we learn Romans 6, 7, and 8, right? Dead to sin, dead to the law, alive unto God, the Holy Spirit. So So every day, 100 times a day, Romans 6, 7, and 8, 6, 7, and 8 is going through your mind, right? My train of thought. And so is step 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3. Because I admit I'm powerless. I'm still coming to believe. We're all going to be coming to believe until Jesus comes to get us. We're going to be on step 2 till he comes to get us. We're going to be on 1, 2, and 3 till he comes to get us. We're still powerless. We're coming to believe, and we got to surrender our will and our life over. That control you were talking about, Martin. We got to, and be willing to listen. Be willing to change. You know, step 1 was we admitted we had a problem, and I could admit I had a problem, but accepting it was another issue. I didn't want to accept the fact that I had a problem. I didn't want something to be wrong with me. So I remember Bill Somm, you were talking about scared, and we were talking about fear last week. And I'm really good at it. The thing that keeps me from being brutally honest, open, honest, and transparent, to be able to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, or I'm scared, I don't know what to do, is pride. And I remember John Glenn one time, he was teaching a class, and he goes, there's a rock down there, and on one side is unbelief. And if you kick it over, the other side says pride. And I never forgot it, because it's the pride and the unbelief in our flesh that prevents us from being open, honest, and transparent. Yeah. I'll speak for myself. That's what God is dealing with me with. So when you're believing you're the brand new person, you don't have a problem identifying the character defects of the flesh. You can tell on yourself. You can tell on it, because it's not you. But when you're seeing yourself as your flesh, you're going to try to hide it, cover it up with pride, and you're not going to be open, honest, and transparent. You're going to put on the show and pretend. That's when we become a hypocrite or, religious. Stand on the corner, preaching out for everybody to see how great you are and how much knowledge you know, and how, he must really have a relationship with God. Look at that. It's a hypocrite. Jesus said, don't do that. Don't be like that. Because they're doing it to be seen by men, because deep down on the inside, they're insecure and they don't know who they are. And they're playing a game. Been there, done that. I've done it. Praying, you don't see me pray out loud a lot. I pray for a lot of people, but it's between me and God in the closet. I just the way I prefer to do it. I don't even like to hear myself speak out loud. I'd rather just keep my mouth shut. No. Now it's kind of like let your yes be yes and your no, no. Anything else is of the evil one. That your flesh gets in there, man.
Yep.
And next thing you know, your head swells up and you really are somebody. Anyway, that's all I had.
Jim, you opened up with natural versus supernatural. And I wholeheartedly agree. I'm not saying I understand it all, but I think we ought to talk about the fact that when we're living this supernatural lifestyle, or at least struggling to, that it's weird to those around us, because it's just not normal. We can talk about normal here. So let's equate normal with natural, and again, I lose my train of thought as well, but we come off as weird and almost as we threaten those around us, because there's certain people in our lives that have a stake in us.
Mhm.
They're depending on us to meet their needs. And then when we start talking about only doing what the Father tells us to do and only saying what the Father tells us to say, and the fact that we can hear from God, that scares them, right? So it puts them in a fearful mood. So,
Yeah, but plus you've got, well, isn't that just Tom that from Freedom Ranch that,
mm,
and they look at you as, like Jesus said, a prophet is not without honor except in his own town, right?
gotcha.
Because everybody among the friends you grew up with see you as that.
Yeah. In fact, right with that statement you just made, they also followed it up with this: "Isn't this the Jesus of Nazareth that we know?
Right.
Isn't this the Tom that we know? Isn't this the Jim that we grew up with?" Or that, I mean,
Right.
So we're fighting that battle, as well as that battle that's within us, trying to walk out this lifestyle. And you nailed it when you talked about the lies, the hypocrisy, the law and the lies. That's
our best efforts.
yeah.
In order to walk out the supernatural lifestyle, he has to make that happen.
Right.
All we have is a willingness for it to happen.
Right.
And we wait on him to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the hard part, because how do you trust someone you don't know?
Right.
So now we're getting down to the relationship, personal, intimate relationship. And how do you get that? And it's from him showing up, doing for you what you can't do for yourself over and over again until your faith grows, your trust in him grows to a certain level. Then you start walking in that. You can't make that happen.
And you talk about somebody you don't know, somebody that you can't touch, that you can't look in the eye, that you can't
see, right? Invisible.
Or shake their hand. Talk about unnatural. I mean, that's wow. I mean, it's right. to the mind of the flesh, it is voodoo, really. I mean, it's so far out there to the natural mind. So it's a battle on every front.
I was scared.
Well, and I think we need to add into that, it's just as spooky to the religious mind, which is operating naturally, trying to perform religiously, and they don't understand when somebody walks past them with peace and can't be manipulated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was you talk about a person like that. You talk about John Glenn. I remember him talking about how this woman was going to bless him with this $5,000 check, and that was her religious effort to get the pastor on her side. As you guys were talking about earlier, which means if the pastor's on my side, then God's going to be on my side, right? And he pushed the check back to her and said, "Go home and love your husband. You want me on your side? Go home and love your husband." That's just like, that's just totally mind blowing. But that's the kind of things that John Glenn did. And I'm not putting him on a pedestal, but I observed that, and I'm like, whoa.
I got to
the reverse side of that. I've had pastors just stand up in the pulpit and say, "If you want to get to know me, invite me to lunch. I'll show up, especially if you're paying."
Yeah. That's right.
Like, wow.
I got to the point to where even after God had showed up over and over, saved my life, I couldn't tell you how many times, I still had trouble trusting him. because of my conditioning, my authority figures abused me. So in my thinking, my natural thinking, sooner or later he's going to turn on you. You can't trust him. Don't do it. So what I had to finally do was I had to dare to trust him. I had to finally step out, and if he doesn't save me, I'm going to die. So I finally just had to dare to trust him. I had to dare to do it. And of course he showed up, and he keeps showing up, but that was the initial breakthrough, I guess. It's like looking at the chair saying, I believe that chair could hold me. But you don't know until you actually go sit in the chair.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, that's the exercising of faith. Actually, where the rubber hits the road. It kind of reminds me. I hate to use, but truth is truth wherever you see it. So y'all remember the Indiana Jones movie where the one where he's after the Holy Grail and he comes to this big chasm, and they get to this, and there's this just big dark chasm, and he has to walk in faith, and from what he can see, it's just a abyss, right? So he just kind of holds his heart and he steps out in faith and takes a step forward, and he didn't see it, but there was a solid bridge there.
oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Remember, he kicked the dust as he took that step forward. He kicked the dust, and I saw that too, and I saw the gospel in it that God kicked that dust. He had his foot kick that dust so that he could see that there was more to this than he knew.
Right, but he didn't know it. He didn't know it until he actually took the step.
That's right. He had to take the step.
He hung his ass out there.
That's it.
And that was it. And I thought that was a pretty profound example, a visual of what it means to step out in faith.
Mm-hmm.
When there's really no alternative but live or die.
The faith of a mustard seed. Just move your foot forward.
Yeah. So even in Hollywood, we see it.
Yeah.
Looking at step 2 here, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves. And here's the big one. I think Jim said he had to dare to do it.
Yeah.
Could stir us to sanity.
Yeah.
So first of all, we have to understand that we're not in a sane state when we're working naturally. And that's hard for us to believe because we think we have it all together.
Yeah.
Well, you got to compare it with supernatural. You got to compare it with his lifestyle of perfection. You can't compare it to one another. You got to compare it with his standard.
Right.
And John said it many times, anything less than Jesus is by definition dysfunctional.
Dysfunctional,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the sanity becomes evident only after we step out in faith. So in the Indiana Jones deal, not to beat that up too much, but
yeah,
it wasn't until after he hung himself out there, then he could see clearly, and he did the thing with kicking the dust, and he's like, oh, there's something solid there that'll support me.
Yeah.
And he realized, that was the sanity. So it's the same thing with us. Take my yoke upon you. Learn of me. I'm going to teach you. And because my yoke is easy, my burden's light. I am meek and lowly of heart. I'm not going to beat you up. Okay. I'm not here to beat you down. I'm here to lift you up. And you'll discover that my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So it's an invitation. Well, connected to the invitation is the promise, right? And I will give you rest. And I think that's the coolest thing, but it's so backward. And I could bring in the horse analogy and all these things like, that I can relate to. But it's just so backward. And the only thing I'll say about the horse analogy, to understand the way a horse thinks is totally opposite the way we think. And until you can get into his head, you're going to have a hard time relating, to him. And it's the same thing with us. But until we can start getting into Jesus's head, God's head, it's going to be like, hell, no way I'm doing that. Somebody's got to look out for me. Somebody's got to look out for number one. Somebody's got to look out for me and my money and my health and my relationships and my wife and my kids. Better be me.
My stuff, my job, and everything else. It's mine.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my stuff. Don't forget my stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take my yoke as the willingness.
Right.
And he says, learn of me. So I was thinking, what are we learning? What's he teaching us? He's teaching us about who he is. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father.
Yeah.
So that we'll trust him. So that be able to trust him.
Mm-hmm.
Because it all comes down to that, don't it?
Yep.
It's another word for believe.
Well, it's, and don't beat yourself up, any of you. And I'm talking about the audience out there and all of us, because the same thing happened with those 12 disciples that were with him. I mean, they were getting private tutoring from him for 3 years, every day.
Yeah.
And Thomas himself said, well, I don't believe it until I see it, feel it, touch it. And Jesus answered, he's like, are you so dull that you don't get it yet? So that's okay. If we're a little dull and we don't get it yet, we're in good company. So don't beat yourself up.
And he already knows it.
Yeah, he already knows it. No, he knows it. We're not going to do anything that will shock him or surprise him. Nothing at all. There's nothing that will diminish his love for us. So that's why he says, hey, here's the invitation. Take my yoke on you. Learn of me. And the agricultural analogy there is that when you put an old horse in a yoke with a young horse is going to fight and rebel. And that old horse is just going to plod along, is going to do all the work and drag that youngster along with him until that youngster finally relaxes and said, hey, this ain't so bad. And before you know it, you're back at the barn, you get out of the yoke, you're getting fed, you chill out, and work's all done. So Jesus is saying, just watch me work. And before you know it, it starts becoming not work, but
a relationship.
Yeah, that's what we do.
A love affair, Martin says. I love that.
Yeah, I do.
Love affair.
Yeah. Yep. And imagine this, being comfortable around Jesus. I mean, what if Jesus was sitting right next to you right now? Would that make you feel comfortable or uncomfortable? It's going to make your flesh feel very uncomfortable, I think. All right. But the real you is going to just want to just be glued to him. Can't get enough of him,
It's funny that you bring that up. I've had a couple of instances in my life where he was here, and I couldn't say anything. I just burst into tears.
Yeah.
All the anger and resentment and bitterness and hatred and control, and he just showed up and totally disarmed me, And the beauty of that is he did it in a way where I knew. My thing was, when I went through the farm, they made you fill out this paperwork, and it said, what do you want out of this final phase of this program. I think it was 6 weeks, maybe 12. I don't know. But anyway, and I put down, I want to know that I 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 know that I'm loved. And he showed up and did that for me. And he didn't need my help to show me. Totally disarmed me. All the defense mechanisms, all the armor that I had put on, and I couldn't take off. Because part of this natural thinking is we build these walls, and then we become prisoners of them. And you get in relationships later on in life, and people are like, why do you have a problem with intimacy? Why can't you express yourself? Why can't you get real? Goes back to what Jim was saying earlier. Because I don't know how to. All I've done is built walls. Nobody showed me how to pull them down. And when he starts not only showing you that it's safe to come out from behind the wall, but he starts taking the wall down. That's love. That's love.
Yeah, it's like that song Sting and the Police sing "Walking on the Mines I Laid."
Yeah.
Man, it's
Yeah.
true. Because we laid the mines.
And that, well, you did.
Yeah.
And that's the intimacy. That's the intimacy of the yoke. That's the personal relationship. These are all buzzwords. There's so many buzzwords in this. Him doing for us what we can't do for ourselves. Trust, faith. All these different words. But the person of Christ, when he shows up, especially when you're dealing with whatever he's brought up in you to deal with, it's a game changer. It will change you from the inside out. You will believe because it's true for you. End of story.
Yeah, and you'll never be the same.
No. You walk down the road going, well, shit, I should be freaking out right now. Or that used to piss me off. Or, I'm not a doormat anymore. I'm not fill in the blank. And you experience what you've been saying. That's living out the gospel. That is grace.
I was talking with, I won't say her name, but she was at the ranch Sunday. And if she's listening, she'll know who it is. And she says, "Oh, I just want to thank you guys for that Tuesday night because it helps me so much." And she goes, "Yeah, the things that we talk about are just so good." And I go, "Yeah, it helps reinforce the truth you already know." And she goes, "Yes, because you've experienced it now to be true."
Right.
And she's like, "Yes, that's it."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought when that first happened to me, I was the only one that ever had that experience. Like this light bulb clicked on. It's like I said, I've always known that.
Yeah.
But no, I was scared to say it out loud because people wouldn't have thought they thought I was crazy, right? And again, because it's supernatural, and supernatural to the natural mind is crazy. Well, let's face it, guys, we're weird. We are.
No, but you see, it's backwards. Turn the TV on and call yourself weird. Look at some of them freaks on TV at the moment. You know what I mean?
No, what I'm saying is like we're back. What backwards is another way of saying weird. We refer to people. Well, they're dumb and they're ignorant. They're just real backward people.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's how I take the word backward. And by the way, I was really perplexed. I said, is it walking backward or walking backwards? And I was really
Back
You
for-
know, going back and
I
forth.
wanted the same thing.
Well, I Googled it, and here's what I found: that in English, predominantly, it's backward, but in in American English, it's backward. But in Martin's English, England's English, and it's they invented it, so you got to give them a little bit of credit. It's
Just a
backward
little.
with an S on the end.
just a little, yeah.
So either of them is correct. It's just a matter of location.
Yeah. See, that's the kind of
And probably
that's the-
matter of
that's the-
another book was
that's-
already titled.
yeah. But that's the
Yeah.
that's the kind of crap that people get caught up in, so they don't have to deal with what the Lord's really
Well-
trying to get them to deal.
It doesn't have an S.
Yeah,
so I'm
yeah,
not gonna read it.
But that's how John wrote it, and I'm
Yeah.
as much as I love and respect him, I said, well, let's make sure this is right. And I was the one that
Yeah.
was charged with every jot and tittle, which meant that I needed to focus on puncturing and spelling and making sure that all the verses cited were accurate and all those things. I had nothing to do with content. Content was not my department, and I was not an English major. I would have been much happier to have been doing algebra. Math was more my thing. So, and again, we may go through this in this study, and we may find that there's something I missed. I even hired a professional to do it and paid him. But again, English, the punctuation and spelling, and whether it's backward or backwards, those were all the things that were driving me crazy. And as many times as I read through it, I didn't study it. So now it's time to study it.
Right.
Which brings me to my question to all of you. It looks like we're ready to engage chapter 1, which starts on the actual page 1. And how far do we want to study this week before we meet again? I think probably going no further than the very top of page 6.
6?
That's a lot of stuff in there. So maybe we shouldn't go that far.
Easy, Bill. If you get stuck on 4, I'll read the next 2 with you.
Yeah. Well, there's basically, he breaks it down into sections.
I was thinking paragraph 2.
Okay. Well, hey, there's a lot to be said for studying one verse at a time as we go through the Bible. So,
Yeah.
whatever you guys, we could say, let's not go any further than, and that way, if we don't reach that point, we can always retreat a bit and pick it up again the next week.
So don't go any further than law and grace regarding our suffering.
I would suggest it, but that may be too much. What do you guys think?
Right. Well, I mean,
What does the audience think?
I'll tell you next. I'll tell you next Tuesday evening after we're done.
I think if we have everybody read up until page 6, at least they'll be up with us, and if we don't get that far, it'll be okay. But at least
Well, that's
people
what
are going to join us.
Yeah.
Have it
What
covered.
Perfect, Dave.
do you
And I'll
guys
tell you
think?
what I had to do myself, because I'm not a reader. You all know I read my first book last year, and I know that's hard for a lot of people to believe, but
What did you think of The Cat in the Hat? I thought it was a pretty good book.
yeah, but
I think that was a shot, but I'm not sure.
and I really liked his hat, and but just read it, and then go back
Mhm.
and read it again. But just read it through to page 6. That's what I had to do with the intro, because I started immediately tearing it apart. And what about this? What about that? And so I just read the whole intro, and then I went back and read it again and started highlighting some things.
Well, yeah, my natural tendency is to race ahead, and it's again, the natural is not what we're looking for. We're looking for the supernatural. So,
Marcia says that she read through the top of page 6 today. It's a lot, capitalized, to digest.
well, I would agree, because this introduction is just basically an overarching.
I'm not even through the introduction yet.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's
I think it's
and
too
more
fast.
detail will come out as we go along.
Yeah.
So did we
Cool.
even touch base in the introduction on a new lifestyle? Did we read
Well,
any of that?
we can certainly, well, let's see. What were I have some notes on that. Let me see if I heard any of
Right
that.
above
Right?
that talks about the yoke. We just talked about that in the restful walk.
Okay.
But the new lifestyle, therefore, as you have received Christ Jesus, so walk in him by grace through faith. We didn't talk about that.
Well, we could certainly pick it up there, and if we go a little further next week, that would be fine. My notes on that basically were, well, no, I think we'll save that for next week. If you care.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Want to start there?
The new lifestyle, and then if we spill
Yeah.
over into chapter 1, we do.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's a good idea.
Because my thoughts on this, and you guys correct me if you have different thoughts, but my idea is to study this together and share this together with each other. And I think by doing that, it creates not only well, it actually creates an intimacy with each of us, with one another, which I also believe is what the purpose of the church is. So
Absolutely.
rather than having one person stand up and teach, I think it's a shared experience, and by shared experience, it'll bring us all closer together. Not just the faces you see on the screen, but all of us out there that are all of you that are following along. I did this with my family when my kids were growing up. Sunday night was family reading night, and we would read a book together. I would take the lead, and I would read aloud till I got a little bit tired, and I'd pass it over to Verna, and she'd read about a page because she doesn't like to read publicly aloud, even if it's just me and the kids. And then the kids would read a page or two, each of them, and then we'd come back to me. And what happened is that we shared these stories with each other, and it became very powerful. It bonded us together, and we often refer to those stories. Now, of course, obviously, this isn't a story. This is reality. But I think by all of us experiencing it together, even you guys that are putting your comments, and there's been some great comments tonight. I just think that's what the church is all about, and I'm still in the process, and probably will be for the rest of my life, of really looking at what the church really is. What really is the church, and being open to let God show me through all of you what the church is all about. And I've made the commitment to be the pastor, but I have a lot to learn as pastor, and I think God's going to use all of you to teach me.
Ditto.
With that being said, I know this gets posted on Facebook. Will you be monitoring comments under it on Facebook? Because there's a few people here, but I bet a lot more people will catch up with it.
I don't know. Well, I see a Facebook comment there.
I never even thought about it.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking if we can glean some of the questions that may come up in the Facebook posts, it may be good material to go over next week as well. Maybe someone will take. I'll try and catch what I can, but if we try and catch what we can that comes up on comments on Facebook, it might lend to a deeper understanding for other folks too.
Yeah. Oh, I see the comments now. Okay.
Yeah, it's not under private chat, it's under comments. I've been kind of watching, and I think I want to encourage everybody to, if you have questions, stick it in there. We might not jump on it right away, but someone will see it and we'll bring it up into the conversation. Because it's hard to have 30 or 40 or 50 of us on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
You're muted, Tom.
Sorry, but thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
you-
Jim. Realize. No, I was saying I'm seeing these comments, Marcia and Rod and Ashley. So we can only put 9 people on the platform on the screen at one time. But I usually watch, and the other guys do too. And I'm looking for people. If you post a question or a comment or have something to add, I'll try to repeat it or address it as we go along. Okay.
Yeah.
So that we truly are trying to study this together. So this is kind
Again,
of
I
like,
want to let everybody know, if
Go ahead.
they're in Fort Pierce and they want to join us Thursday, we'll be at Common Grounds Corner Cafe. It's at Juanita and US 1. I'll be there by 5:30 having dinner. We'll do the discussion 6:30 to 8. So anybody wants to join in Fort Pierce and do a follow-up, I'm gonna do both because I just want to go
Yeah.
as deep as we can and invite people to another form of the Alpha series, basically.
so Dave, that's just on US 1, like just north of where you go over the causeway, goes over to the North Hutchinson Island. Is that where that is?
Yeah, you can't get across that bridge right now in front of Publix because a new bridge is being built. So you'll
Okay.
come to the very next light, and Sacred Ground is at the very next light.
Okay, I've been there in a while, and I didn't know they were working on that bridge, but I have a pretty rough idea where that is. So yeah,
So that's
and you can go and have dinner and then hang out, right?
Yeah, he allows us to use the room, so I encourage people to at least come and buy a dessert or something and support him. He doesn't have a fee for the room at all for us.
Oh, that's nice. Okay. All right. Well, are we at a stopping point for tonight then?
Yeah, man.
It seems like let's all be weird together next week.
Yeah, we're definitely weird. No doubt about that. Okay, then. Bill, you want to go through who's here? Bill, you're muted.
Yeah,
now.
I have a mic now.
Okay.
Let's see. We got, of course, Dave, Steve, Barefoot,
Hey, Steve.
Barefoot and Blues, guitar player. Kelly Odom, Bob Stafford, Gregory,
Bob.
Michelle McMillan, Rodney.
It's French, Bouchot.
Ashley Frias.
Freeze.
I hope I
Yeah.
said that right. And Gregory, Dave, Barefoot, Marcia, Barbara, Kelly, Chuck, Warren. He had a family thing that he had to take care of tonight. That's why he wasn't here with us. And that's it. Thank you all for being here, and for those who come in and watch, you're welcome to sign on and get in and put in any questions that you want. We'll do our best to answer them for you. And to all of you, just pray for us that we do honor to this book, to these words that God gave John, and help us to be open, honest, and transparent about the stuff that God shows us through this thing. That creates a good example. And the same thing for each of you. When you do it in your family, that's exactly what you're doing. You're being an example to them on how they can be open, honest, and transparent. And it's just an amazing thing. It saved my marriage. It saved my life. My life is just completely different than it used to be. Martin?
I would add before Martin closes us up here is I would say that it's not just questions, but also insight, your own personal insight, your own personal testimony is very valuable to others. And, if you have a testimony or an insight, there's somebody out there that needs it, needs to hear it, needs that the encouragement, because they're probably dealing with something very similar. And so I encourage that as well. Go ahead, Mark.
I heard that some of the sound was tough on Sunday, and I haven't listened to it yet myself, but I heard it just late this afternoon, so I hadn't had a chance to listen to Sundays again. But I can tell you that the testimony, we're trying to get other people involved if they have a testimony or whatever. If God shows them something, share it. And the testimony that was given by Lisa was amazing. And because Gail and I have had her over here at the house a few times and different things, and we've thoroughly come to enjoy her. And her life is completely different than what it used to be. And that's exactly what Jesus does. That's exactly it.
And hi, Patty. Patty just chimed in.
Hi, Patty.
Patty and Jim just got married a couple of weeks ago here. I got
Oh, yeah.
be part of that, so that was cool. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
So if anybody wants to reach out during the week or get involved, most of us are on Facebook. If somebody out there wants to get on the screen, just look us up, and all we need is an email address, and you get a link, and you can join us. So we'll be here next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week.
Okay. Hey, Jim.
God bless. Have a good one.
All right.